Woohoo.
Woohoo. Alrighty, welcome. Call this meeting to order. Roll call. Tim, Becky, Rivka, Doug, myself. Is that how we, well, last time we just said aye or yay or nay?
But it's as long as
Present?
yeah,
Okay.
as long as I
We're all
can hear.
And the reason we do that now, Becky, is because we get paid once a year. And so therefore we gotta have a roll call is
Okay.
what the
Good to know. Thank you.
powers to be said.
Gotcha.
We had to
You
do
don't
that.
show up, you don't get your
Yeah.
$53 for that.
Yeah.
Noted.
So, first order of business, I'd like to welcome Becky as a new board member, so, welcome.
Thank you.
And,
Glad to be
Yeah,
here.
so, roll call. Tim, would you open with a word, please?
Lord, may we come in this evening hour, in this beautiful day. Again, we may gather here together. Give us wisdom to be stewards of thy creation. Forgive us of every sin. Give health and strength. This we ask. In thy name, for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Review
One
and
second, I
approve.
might be muted for some reason.
Can you hear us out there? Darcy, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Alex?
Sharcy, we're unmuted on this end, so it might be on your end.
If you're speaking, we can't hear you either, Sharcy. You want to tell her that? Since she
And we can't hear you if you're trying to say
She
anything.
can't.
You might have to put it in the chat if she
Yeah,
can't
that's what I'm
hear.
saying.
Mhm.
Are we good?
Mhm.
Alrighty, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there support?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? How about the agenda? There isn't any edits, correct?
There are,
Oh, there are edits?
yeah, so the only one I have on here currently is the program highlight has changed again. Because we didn't end up having the water monitoring meeting, so there wasn't really much to say outside of the emails that you guys got, so Sarah was so wonderful to last minute put together a grant management, PowerPoint, which we had talked about in the past, just like ins and outs of different parts of grants, so. We'll be doing that instead. And that's highlighted for you.
Alrighty, so we need a motion to approve the amended agenda, correct? And yes, I did that right, I believe.
All right, I make a motion to approve the corrected agenda.
Support?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Public comment. Is there any public tonight?
No.
Since there is none, we won't have any. Staff reports.
Yeah, so you have all your board reports in front of you. Again, if you guys don't like just having 2 copies, that's fine. I just wanted to try to save some paper, but we do give our 2-minute updates, like just something that went well for you this month, for any staff that's in attendance. But first I want to introduce, I don't know if all of you have had the opportunity to meet Muriel. She is
technically in
our
person.
new West Michigan SISMA coordinator.
Oh, Mary?
Meet you. Nice to meet you. She's doing great. She is originally from Grand Haven area, but she was working with the SISMA up north. And now she's back down here with us and she's doing a great job. So
Great.
thank you.
I'll let you run your report. Who's
Yep.
up first?
Do you want to go first, Karen?
Sure,
Okay.
something that went well, I had my emergency management plan for the farm, so we looked at what all goes into an emergency plan for the farm, spill response, chemical lists, talking with your fire department, your local emergency planning committee. I had a pretty good turnout, just about everyone that signed up showed up. Majority farmers, some of my verified farms, some in progress farms, and a couple new interested farms. So it was a huge win for me and I was happy with it. And then I'm looking forward to my invasive species management, workshop that I'm planning for May, so.
Good job, good work.
Thanks.
How many farms or people or how many entities were in attendance?
I had about 20 people, and so I'd say about probably 17 farms, cause
Great.
there's a couple of techs, township supervisor sat in. So, yeah, majority farms, which was my goal,
It's a great meeting.
yeah.
Morgan, would you like to go next?
Yeah, March was a very heavy outreach month. I think I saw Rivka like 7 times at various events, so. Yeah, just running all over, presenting, tabling, throughout my service area, but also in Kalamazoo and things that I was invited to speak at as well, so. That was really nice to see and interact with new people. And then I hosted some produce safety coffee chats and had a couple growers come. We talked for an hour and a half and just, I heard their ranting, so that was really nice too. And I'll have another one tomorrow in Holland for that. So yeah, outreach.
Morgan's also been killing it with the Facebook and also the outreach newsletters that got mailed out. She made that as well. So she's been doing a really great job.
She's also doing a big part of the spearheading a pollinate conference. for the
Yeah.
year, too.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
So our Gold Star Employee of the Year earned it.
Pollinate.
I'll give an update on that when he gets back.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Muriel. I've been working here about a month, and in that time, we have been awarded 2 new grants. So we got our MISGP project and core funding. And then we also were sub-awarded an HWA grant by the DNR to do HWA treatments in the Huron-Manistee National Forest. So that is my update.
Great, thank you.
Ben, do you wanna go next?
Yeah, we are, I think the biggest update is we are just still slogging forward on the Ottawa County monitoring funding. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow with the finance director for the county to just try to get her on board and hopefully explain some things, answer some questions they might have, and we're just moving forward constantly. The other thing, I guess, is I did talk to an employee from the DNR about our Glacial Lakes grant, which would be providing technical assistance for and then cost share for natural shoreline restoration work, and it looks really, really positive. We should be getting at least partial funding for that grant, which just means we can kind of create sort of a pilot program to assist people doing that work, and some cost share to help people do some natural shoreline along lakes. So good stuff.
Sarah?
So that's any lake, I'm assuming, any
Yeah,
lake or is it
on
the
the
big one?
grant, we've kind of identified a few spots specifically on Spring Lake and then Crockery Lake as well. We had some landowners sign some letters of support, and if we get partial funding, we'll probably have enough money to maybe help with 3 or 4 sites, and we have enough landowners to already fill that out, so.
Good.
For my quick update, I wrote a little grant for the MyCore Volunteer Stream Monitoring Program, and I got an email today saying that we were selected to move forward with it. So it's a small grant, it's about $4,700, but it's to basically help start up a volunteer stream monitoring program. And our goal is the goal for this grant is just 1 year, small amount of money, just to help us figure out, give us a little bit of money to help figure out the program overall and do some training, and also visit some other organizations, volunteer events, so that we can then host a pilot event of our own as well to kind of get things sorted out. And then with the hope that we are gonna be reapplying for an implementation grant, which is about $20,000 to actually like full send with the program. So that's exciting. And then I've also done a couple of presentations to some high school classes this year or this month as well. So that was nice to get out and brought the Enviroscape and talked about watershed planning and the non-point source pollution, all that kind of good stuff. And we learned that the Career Line Tech Center environmental studies class or environmental field studies class is actually using our Pigeon River watershed management plan as a textbook in their course right now, which is really kind of fun.
No big deal.
No big deal.
Really
You know.
fantastic.
Just kind of great.
Basically a doctor.
Yeah.
Basically.
Alex, you got something?
I do. Yeah, 1 second here. Oh, all right, there we go.
Great.
Yeah, so RCPP, we just finished up the last app or the first, last, and only application for this sign up with the landowner for irrigation, water management, and sprinkler head upgrades for his center pivot, which has been the direction that we've been trying to focus on in terms of water saving in the county. So his application is just being reviewed here at the office level at this point, and then it's going to be sent up to the state office for their quality assurance review. And if all goes well, then we'll be getting that contracted in the coming months. For those of you guys that maybe don't know or aren't aware, Becky helps to run or she's in charge of the easement program over at the county. And so we've been working together on the last couple of applications for RCPP. So have some pending conversations with her coming about some practices that are going to be chosen for her deed language for these easements. And we hitting the ground running with that as well. Sarah and I have been working on putting together some outreach materials. So actually getting in front of some landowners throughout this spring and figuring out some sort of way to join some other existing workshops or events that maybe MSU Extension or other partners are hosting, so that we can just reach out to landowners, let them know that we are doing uniformity testing and we have funds for irrigation upgrades. So lots going on right now, but all very positive.
Thank you. Any questions for Alex?
Good work.
Charcy,
Thank you.
are you muted yet, Charcy?
She's working on it.
Hi.
Ooh.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Yes,
I
we
just
can.
got a
It's a
new
little
computer today,
pixely,
so
that's-
I'm trying to figure it all out. All right. Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So we're rolling right now. We're about
Ooh.
halfway through our equips up. I was hoping next month. Was it a bad connection?
It's a little bad connection. Maybe turn your video
No.
off.
Okay.
That-
Okay. Let's try that.
That's
How's
better.
that? Any
That's
better?
Yeah.
Very better.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We're about halfway through our equip sign up. I was hoping at the next board meeting to come and sort of give an overview of all the projects that we got funded through that and the ones that we didn't get selected and kind of how we're handling that. And right now we are going through the conservation stewardship sign up program for that program. And Karen Dawson has been a great help. Trying to target some farms that would be a good match for that. So I appreciate her help with that program. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at in the office. So that's sort of the office update. And then on a personal update, I have shared this with the staff and wanted to share with you all that I am in conversations with my supervisor about taking a step back from the district conservationist position, taking a step down. You guys know I'm a new parent, so I kind of want to, for the next few years, go down to a part-time position, a non-supervisory position, something a little less stressful. And so I'm kind of negotiating that with my supervisors right now. And I don't have all the final details, but I am working on looking at a different role with the agency for the next few years. So I'll keep you posted when I know where I'm going, but just wanted you to know where that's at. So that's my update.
Sorry to hear that. Yes, yeah, keep us posted. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yep.
All right,
You'll be very much missed in your role, but also very understandable. So I hope you find it something that's a really good fit for you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this job is a very, very big job, and I don't have it in me right now. So hopefully whoever replaces me does. Thanks.
you bet. Brings us up to Natalie's report.
Yeah, I have just been spending a lot of time at the beginning of the month. I was spending a lot of time training Muriel. She did some reimbursements, and successfully did a couple by herself now too, which I am so excited about. She's been doing a great job. So I've been doing a lot of training. And then I spent a lot of time on our annual meeting, which I think went pretty successfully. And other than that, I've just been trying to get some processes down with our new bookkeeper, Annalise, who is not here tonight, but I'm sure you'll meet. And that is kind of what I've been up to. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, we also opened a bank account for our savings account, and I think that is the biggest one of the month because we've been trying to since November. It's been a saga.
That has been a chore and a half.
So that is a big one.
Congratulations.
Yes. Does that come up later? No, we'll handle
What's
that.
that? Yeah,
We'll
we-
handle
we're
with financing. Great. Any questions for Natalie? Thank you, Natalie. Oh, monthly program highlights. Is that what we were doing or is that what we erased?
We changed it.
Okay.
So now it's gonna be the grant management, pieces and parts. Well, Sarah's awesome title is not.
This is just a fun title. The grant management puzzle. So we just wanted to do review a couple of key things for grant management I think we're having a discussion today on putting together like a grant policy and things. So we just want to make sure that everyone's kind of on the same page with terminology, different things like that. So as far as a grant, it all starts with an RFP, which basically just means a request for proposal. These requests for proposals is basically an invitation that to nonprofit organizations, local governments, different organizations to submit a proposal for specific funding opportunities. So these come from federal governments, state governments, they come from local private organizations, community organizations. It can come from anywhere, and they might have funding for a certain project, and they'll put out this RFP to say, please apply for this funding. An RFP is going to detail what that money can or should be used for. And it also is going to include details for basically what you need to include in your proposal in order to be competitive. So just a couple of things like, it's going to include how much funding is available, what sort of deadlines, the evaluation criteria, basically all the things that you need to have in order to be a competitive application. These RFPs are released throughout the year. It depends on the grant. Sometimes a grant program releases an RFP annually. Sometimes they do it biannually. Sometimes they do it quarterly. Sometimes they have year-round applications. Sometimes it's just whenever it's available and we don't know until they make the announcement. So it's never always the same. But once an RFP is released, we usually have around a month or so to write a proposal, sometimes longer, sometimes less. Sometimes we find out about it and we have 2 weeks. Sometimes we have 2 months. So it really kind of depends on the proposal itself. This is just an example. I'm not going to read all these things, but this is just like from our 319 RFP for our watershed programs. This is like general requirements. So they'll have a whole list of all the requirements you have to include in order to be eligible for that funding. So this is just something like for our 319 program, we have to make sure our projects follow these requirements. And then there's also additional requirements depending on what type of project you are applying for. So long story short, it's going to have a ton of details in there that you have to make sure to follow in order to get money. Budgets as well, obviously, is a big part of applying for these grants. As far as budgets, those grant RFPs will identify what sort of activities are eligible and ineligible. So like this is another example just pulled from our 319 applications. These are activities that are ineligible for funding that we cannot apply for. So all RFPs are going to identify what you cannot apply for and what you can or cannot use the money for. They'll also usually have like either eligible areas, or critical or high priority areas. So that will also depend on your grant and if you get funded or not. As far as budget requirements, so these budgets, they're educated estimates on what you think you are gonna use the money on. Obviously, when you make a budget, you can have your best guess as to how many hours you're gonna put into it or what kind of equipment dollars you might need. But those things may change over time, and that's okay. These grantors are aware and know that it's an estimate, and they're okay with moving things around, which I'll talk about in a minute. But basically, as far as a budget, you're gonna have your direct versus indirect costs. Direct costs, that's the vast majority of your budget. That's gonna be things like, so these are costs that are incurred as a specific part of the budget. So things like wages for staff time, equipment that you need, outreach materials, mileage. That's gonna be the main part of the budget. Indirect costs, that's basically the profit that we make. That money is costs that are needed to house the program. So basically that goes towards that organization to cover facilities and administrative costs. So things like rent, paying insurance on vehicles or paying for utilities, wages for support staff, really anything that's going to help support this program being housed in a place. Typically, those indirect costs cannot exceed 10% of the total grant request. You can move up to 20% if you have a NECRA in place, which we do not have one. A NECRA is another document that you would have to make. It stands for Negotiated Indirect Cost Rate Agreement. It's basically a document. We had looked into potentially making one. It's a little bit more involved, isn't it?
It's a cumbersome process
Mhm.
and it's, you really have to show throughout that process why your indirect should be more than 10%. So it could very well be that we would go through the process of creating a NECRA and it might come out to say, oh, maybe we could get 13%, 14%. So we just we looked at it, looked how long it took, and it just doesn't really make sense at this point to try to write one, but in the future it might.
Right. So as of right now, we can only go up to 10%, but also your indirect cost does not have to equal 10%. If it's a grant that is a very much more strict budget and you don't have as much money for the project itself, you want to make sure that the indirect cost doesn't get in the way of the actual project that you are trying to do. Just a couple other things. So what happens if we end up needing, like I mentioned earlier, if we need more money for one budget line item than another? So say we end up spending more time than we think working on this program and we end up, and maybe the equipment costs aren't as expensive. Grantors, are certainly happy to make those amendments as needed. Sometimes, most grantors allow a certain percentage of flex on a line item without any issues. So you don't even have to have a budget amendment. So, our 319 grants are a good example of this where, we actually have a lot of wage money left over because we ended up having wage money that we used from a previous 319 grant because we've been so good at getting them. So we are able to put some of those 319 grant funds into more cost share instead of using it for wages. But also if we ended up being the other way around, we could use more for wages versus cost share, which obviously don't necessarily want to do that, but it's flexible, long story short. Can you get the money advanced? Sometimes. Not all grants allow this. Primarily, most grants are reimbursement based, so you have to spend money before you get the money. But some grants sometimes allow you to advance depending on that grant. Which SISMA advances some, correct? For like big costs like pesticide and things like that.
Yep, state grants are usually pretty good about it.
Yeah. Reimbursement and reporting process for timelines and things. So once we have a grant, the reimbursement process differs per grant. Just wrote down like for some of our main programs, so 319 grants, we reimburse and do reporting quarterly. RCPP, we do that monthly. MDART is quarterly. NACD is quarterly. SISMA is monthly as needed. So they don't always do a reimbursement every month. They typically will wait until they have enough charges for it. And then with those reimbursement requests, the reporting typically requires something like a progress report. So we have to show like how much hours were worked, what did we buy, have receipts, where are we at with our deliverables, how have we met our things. And then also this is typically when you would do a budget amendment if you need to. Just a couple more slides. This is more like, so how do we use multiple grants to cover one program? I have a little example here of Ben and I. So we applied for a number of grants this spring and winter. And one question that we had got raised in the past is like, well, you guys already work 40 hours a week. Are you like going to have time? Is this just adding more money on top? Well, each grant, like as you can see aside over here, each grant typically we estimate how much money per week. So like we have a little We didn't have our MyCore monitoring grant in here yet, because at this time, we weren't applying for it. But say this Watershed Council grant right here, this is a fairly small 1-year grant. We estimated 4 hours a week, so it's not something, and that's just a guesstimate, and it may not be. Sometimes we might work on it 2 days, 1 week, and 1 week we might not work on it at all. So it's always estimated. Basically, what we try to do is we get funding to cover programs that we are already doing, but then also cover the time that we have, so that it helps extend our positions, obviously, and they happen during different times. So this crockery sand and this pigeon BRDC grant, these gray ones are grants we already have. The yellow are grants that we applied for. And so the goal is to make sure that our positions get extended, and also that we're providing services to the community that we want to provide.
And once you've done a program before in the past, it's really easy to estimate how long it's gonna take you to meet.
Right, yeah. So like for crockery sand, Ben right now is pretty much putting all of his hours towards crockery sand, but that's pretty much the primary grant. But he also has some to pitch in BRDC, but that's also why we have so much left in crockery sand right now, is because we have a lot of wage money left. And so he's putting all his time towards crockery sand, but then the pigeon BRDC grant, or Central Ottawa County is what we were calling it, he's not putting any time towards that right now, which means we're gonna have a little bit more wage money available towards the end when we don't have that. So it just is, depending on what grants we get, you can move money around within a grant to cover what you need.
To expand on that for just
yeah.
a second, with that in mind, like Sarah said, I'm putting all my hours into crockery and sand. I'm still working on items and deliverables on the Pigeon Fest, or Central Ottawa, as we're calling it. And Eagle is fine with that, right? They're okay with me, loading all my hours into one grant, because they're both 319 grants from the same, from Eagle. All the goals and deliverables are all aligned, so I can work on two and put all the hours and the wages onto one. So they're-
However, that is not always the case.
Yeah.
And so like if you looked at a chart like this for the SISMA, you would look at a summer and they'd have different chunks of the year that they're working out of different pots of money, because you treat things at different times a year.
Yeah.
So when they're out treating on Forest Service land and pulling garlic mustard in the spring, they're charging to that grant. And it's not, they're not charging to any other grants, because that's specifically what it's for. So it's really grantor and project based.
And that's
on
why
what
our
you can do.
timesheets are kind of crazy looking sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, 319 grants, they're very flexible as long as we are meeting our objectives and our deliverables. They're pretty flexible with what we charge, like our time and everything. So that's really why that's really why Ben and I have been able to do some of this extra work for like executive team stuff in the last few months, because 319 granting is pretty flexible, which is nice. And we still met our goals, so.
The other thing I would mention too is when we're writing a grant and we budget 4 hours per week, what we're really thinking is that doesn't necessarily mean that every week during that grant period, we're putting 4 hours toward it. That means cumulatively, it's about 4 hours per week. There might be a grant where really all of the work, or 90% of the work, happens within a month and a half span. So it's just kind of one of those, like, we break it down so we can kind of understand the total amount of hours we have to write into the budget, and kind of how our timesheets and our schedules might look. But some of these grants have really heavy periods and then light periods in terms of workflow.
I think I only got two things. So match is another part of these grants. Basically, match is program funds that are required to be procured by us, the applicant, that matches the grant funds we're getting. So this typically is required because it shows the grantor that the organization is committed to this program and they want to get it done. They're not just getting money from, the grant, and they're not going to do anything after. They've got people, partners, and then themselves are invested in the program. And having match usually makes you more competitive to these grantors. Required match varies for percentage. Some grants, I think like the RCPP grant, I think that required 1-to-1. Was that correct? I don't know. I think that required a 1-to-1 match, which basically meant for every dollar we got from the feds, we had to also provide another dollar of match from ourselves or a partner. So that's kind of a lot. Others require only 25% of the total grant funds requested, which is what we do for 319. And some grants don't require any match, which is always great. But if you can show match or show commitment from partners, that still makes you more competitive. So it's always nice to still show some. This match comes sorry, now I moved that and it's kind of covering it. There's basically two different kinds. There's in-kind versus cash match. Cash match is actual dollars that someone's donating to you. So say ODC is gonna donate $500 to this project. That's gonna be your cash match. In-kind match is what we typically get a lot more of versus cash match, and that is like funds provided in the form of volunteer time or employee wages from a different grant, costs of phones, the money that we pay for phones that that our employees are gonna use on a grant. So money that we are already spending that is gonna help support this grant. And then those are typically indirect costs and things. And the last slide, implications of not completing grant deliverables. So a couple things for that. If we don't complete grant deliverables or we don't use all of the money that we are provided, it doesn't look great. It can hurt and affect our competitiveness for future grant applications because that grantor is going to say, well, these people didn't finish their grant and they didn't finish the deliverables last time. So I don't necessarily want to waste my money on them in the future. So that's why it's super important that when we are making a grant proposal, that we are realistic in our goals and what our capacity is to what we can actually accomplish. And then also we want to make sure that during our grants, we're working with our partners appropriately and also making sure to include them throughout the entire project, because if we don't deliver on our promises to our partners, then that means lost partnerships in the future. So those are two really important things when we are doing grants. We want to make sure that we're gonna not only achieving our goals, but making our grantors and partners happy. So that is your grants management 101 reminder, and hopefully that will help with our discussion later on. Any questions?
Could you send the board a copy?
I can send
slideshow?
a copy of it. I'm sorry, it's not very visually stunning presentation,
Well, it's good.
but it's good information just to have a reminder. But yeah, you can send that along.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Does HR have anything? Nope. Finance committee meeting. We talked a little earlier about a savings account, so we had, so yes, we got one open. We are gonna drop, there's some, for lack of going into all the finance fees and how much you gotta have in it, to not have be
Service
charged the
fee.
fees, service fees and such. We put $2,001 going to this coming week into this account. And then we are gonna visit it. We kind of looked at maybe doing something quarterly. So in 60 days, we'll kind of see once where we're at and what we can, if we can, and what we can at that point in time. Kind of if we're gonna put in quarterly, that type of thing, but that's just kind of the hitting the ground running with this account. Tim?
Where's the funding for that coming from?
Basically our general fund, what we're trying to do is put a couple payroll periods worth of rainy day money in there. We've been to the wire several times and been really nervous with trying to make payroll. So our underlying goal, it's gonna take us a couple of years to do that, we assume. But to put in, and this money isn't put there and if we need it, we can grab it, it's a savings account. But we're trying to put a
Hedge a rainy day.
rainy day fund together to, again, we've, in the last 24 months, we've been pretty close to the wire a time or two. And yeah, this is just a way to we all kind of got a savings account and how we use it at home. That's what we're trying to do here.
Will that be characterized differently on the books, restricted in any way, and
It isn't restricted. Like I say, we can dip into it whenever we want. It isn't, no, it won't be just for payroll or this or that. It's just
Just in case.
it's a
it will
just
be
in
called a
case.
reserve or a fund balance? I mean, is that gonna be dedicated and reflected differently on the financial statements? We're going to see that
Well,
running
we
balance
can do that.
stand alone that's in that account, or?
I mean, you'll probably receive, so in that packet that you have open in front of you, you have the statements for each of the bank accounts. You'll probably receive a third statement. And then as far as in QuickBooks, I don't know what we would want to call
Maybe we'll have a name that fund
I name that fund.
contest, so.
You don't like reserve, such as the trigger trigger?
Yeah, there you go.
When they told me,
Submit it.
stuff reserve, I feel like that's a good name.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, we just
What
haven't
bank
got,
was it with that you struggled so hard to get?
oh my goodness, no.
Chase.
Case.
It was horrible.
Why?
I mean, we
Because
even
every other
times-
house is done, why is that?
We even showed up at their
It's a good
doorstep and they,
question.
we even showed up at their doorstep and they wouldn't take our money. It's like, please, I got.
We had to deal with a lady from Florida who took us a while to get a report. But we signed documents and then all of a sudden I got all the documents back because some wording was wrong. They're done. Sent it all back in and sent it all back, wording wrong again.
That's why we're all doing the
And
happy
then it
dance,
was
because we
like
literally have spent
This
hours.
months and
Yeah.
hours
That seems
and
so weird, 'cause
hours
you've
and
been
hours.
banking
with
Nailing that, I've been
Yeah, it
going
doesn't
back.
matter.
and forth.
Exactly.
To the point
I've
where
never
it
had
came up at a
anything
couple
like
meetings.
We
where it's
couldn't
like,
do it with our local branch. We had to go
Mhm.
through this.
Cause of the nonprofit.
So, yeah.
And they took like anything, everything,
we're not-
except
we're not
social security numbers,
government.
everything. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And we're registered with the state, I think, now because of all this. I mean, with the nonprofit part, they made us all like.
We had to we had to re-provide information. But she,
It shouldn't have
yeah,
been that hard. You're exactly right.
yeah, she said we were not allowed to go into a branch.
We could have just bought a mattress, put it somewhere in the office.
Yeah.
Gotten a Sharpie written reserve on it.
That pharmacy should come with that.
Oh, that's just the staff napkin.
I can.
Napkin.
The future fund, we're kind of predicting another year like last year, but not feeling so horrible about it as the payroll thing, but it's there. There's nothing in the money coming in, it's gonna change everything.
Yeah.
So,
If you look at the financial packet that you have in front of you, you should have your two bank statements and then this cash flow document, which you and I looked at as well, I think, would lay that kind of information out for you. I mean, one of the things I gotta do before now and the next meeting is kind of reconcile this and make sure that the next quarter in front of us is up to date with our reimbursements that we know about, which this is pretty much up to date for right now. We don't have a profit and loss this month, and we don't have the reconciliation or the close the door funds, which is something that I talked to you guys about last month that we wouldn't have available to us. But in that email that I sent you a week ago, I did provide you with last month's reconciliation, which did get done. This is something that Annalise is gonna be trained on this month, and so hopefully moving forward, bar any roadblocks she runs into doing it on her own, we should be more routine now, hopefully. So she's gonna get trained on that soon. You'll also see your reoccurring bills list. So this is a list of bills that we pay every month that we sometimes get them like the day after this board meeting, and then they're due before the next board meeting. And so we've made a list so that we can be sure that we're transparent, but also as it comes, you're voting on it so I can pay it. Then you'll have a separate list, which is,
I have a quick question. Why is the health equity listed on that list? Why?
what a great question. So, since we got healthcare in November, and it has been hard for me and the portals, we have been paying our vision and dental since November. That is the 157 a month that you see. I got an email a month ago after our board meeting or so, that said, hey, we messed up. We haven't been billing you for half of your staff's aux benefits, for the last months. So luckily, those were the aux benefits that were like $1 a month, like they were insignificant. So taking it out of someone's paycheck to back pay, it was not a big deal. Everyone was okay. But we have to, it's the same company, it's a different portal that we pay it through, so it shows up on our account is two things. It's been great. This April bills list, that is the stuff that changes. That's a list of things that you're voting to sign the checks today that are in the treasurer's folder. These are things that change month to month. And this is just a really nice way to be transparent about it, so you can see everything that you're voting on. Yes.
I appreciate transparency, but my question is, I see all these checks to all my neighbors. Do I really need to know what my neighbor got paid?
You won't get that next time, promise you. That's gonna be taken out.
It's
You're-
always
you're
been
gonna
in-
get it.
It's always been in your packet.
Yeah, but it's,
This time we put the physical
Visual.
check in there, but it always has been in your packet with who she wrote checks to and the amount of. It was in
The treasurer has a copy of the checks for everybody to look at, and we're gonna go back to that, so we don't have copies of checks going
When-
all over routing numbers and everything.
we thought that was a little unsafe, because
That would-
our account information is
Yeah,
out there
it-
for
it-
someone to grab and
It's
play
just
with.
something that happened from the new
You know.
person, so. they don't know, so.
When the bank statement prints, it prints all the checks too, and they just got
Mhm.
included.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any questions about any of these bills? I do want to note that the very expensive chemical, bill that you see at the top of the April bills to be paid has already been advanced and it's in our account. So that's not something you're thinking.
That's part of this.
Yes,
are you tied to a certain company? Can you bid some of that
we
expensive stuff?
already did bid that out. Yep, and we followed all the state guidelines for MSGP grants.
Perfect.
Yep. Any other questions?
Motion to pay the bills.
I make a motion to pay the bills.
All those in favor? Yeah, is there any discussion? Ooh, there we go.
You need support too.
Well, yeah, is there any support? Is there
Support.
any discussion? Rivka support. Seeing as how none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Alrighty. You wanna talk about the appropriation budget? That's where we're up to next.
Sure,
correct?
yep, I did kind of skip around, I'm sorry. So we also need to, update our appropriations budget because we have received some grants. Some of them we spoke about at the last board meeting. So I'll just start at the top. If you look at this sheet, with the green on it, the first side, anything highlighted green is something that is new or changing, so that it brings you to it. Today, we actually were awarded a grant, to kind of start the pilot program that, Sarah
Volunteer
talked
stream
about for, volunteer stream monitoring. So that is what you see there under 299 Michigan Corps VFMP. The next one is a state MISGP core and project grant that we received. I talked about this at the last board meeting. This money is to fund the West Michigan SISMA coordinator's salary. And we get that every year. And then there's a separate part, they all consider it one pot at the state, but we kind of separate it out. There's another part that funds 3 projects that they write every year. This year, they are going to be treating excavation companies to try to stop the spread of invasive species throughout their service area. They will be treating watch list species, which are just species that the state considers important. They're new, they're not established, so let's get them. And the third is a grant that will treat black swallowwort, which while in Ottawa County, it's not super prevalent. You do have some populations, especially here in Grand Haven, that are being controlled. That is for our Kent partner. They have a lot more of it. So that project is kind of for them. You'll also see 2 other funding streams called the Good Neighbor Authority. They're numbered 23 and 24. These are not new. They were not in here and I used to manage them, so I noticed and put them in. This is a funding stream that we get every year. It's $25,000 from the state. And it is to treat invasive species on federal lands. This is the last year. So you'll see we have 2 executed. We're kind of behind on spending them. And the 2024 one is the last one of the agreement. I hear do have money in the pot. If they choose to have us partner with them again, that's up to their discretion. The next funding stream that you'll see is the EPA EFB funding stream. This is not new either. This is something that the Eagle is administrating. They got a grant through the EPA. They did not spend it down and had to extend the grant. And because we are good at what we do, they put more money in our pot to continue the treatments that would have ended come this year. So that is what you see there with that 12,000. Then we have the FRD EPA HWA grant. And this is a sub-award from the state of Michigan that Muriel was talking about. So we have a HWA crew that follows the statewide management plan. They are considering the Northern Front and Nordhaus Dunes priority. And so they are sub-awarding us this money so that we can have money to follow their priority. They had it in their grant. They know we're good at what we do, so they provided that with us. We did not go after it. The last one is the OCD Macatawa sub-award, which ODC, which is tillage.
Fall tillage and spring residue surveys.
Thank you.
For their Macatawa watershed plan update. We're helping them subcontracting with them.
And that was one we talked about at the last meeting as well. Do you have any questions on any of the additions to your appropriations budgets?
I don't have questions on the additions. I just have questions on the process. Are we amending the approps budget, right? Is this the budget amendment that we're making?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so we're moving to amend our appropriated budget because
Yeah.
expense and revenue changed from how often are we amending the appropriations budget?
When we receive new funding
But
that we
I mean,
didn't
like,
know
just
about.
roughly, we
We've done it
appropriate
more often than
in September.
recently.
for the
Yeah.
upcoming fiscal year, then how often do we have to?
I think this is our
amend?
fourth time.
It has been often because I'm learning, but hopefully moving forward, it will just be when we receive grants, which is usually in the spring a lot of the time. But again, it's hard to say.
Like I say, this past year, we've been in the flux with the new positions, so we've run into some things that was like, oh, didn't see that one type of thing, but yeah, so it ain't been three or four, maybe.
Yeah.
This is the fourth one, maybe.
This might be the fourth one.
But again, normally in a decent year, we're, 4 for the whole year. I mean, I gotta say, that would be a lot.
So this document serves as the resolution that we're passing to amend?
Yes. Is that you like?
I'm just asking, like differentiating between this and the prior three amendments, there's not really anything
Oh,
out here that really.
Yeah, it would be literally this, but then the only thing that has changed is these green additions.
Right, but yes, but this just says the Appropriations Act. It doesn't indicate that this is an amendment or anything.
I
Except
see, like,
for,
split up.
everything really looks pretty much the same as when it's appropriated, except.
I think we have, maybe
With revisions as
in
approved.
section 10.
Just something
for
like,
adoption.
a proposed amendment or something on it that
Mm,
indicates,
okay.
The amendment and the date, I don't know,
Sure.
just so it flows
That makes
through.
sense.
Sure.
But that, the auditors don't care, I don't care. I was just curious.
No,
They've
it's good to
not
do
said
it.
anything, but that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it was like a cover sheet?
Yeah, or even just like,
Just
the
note
Appropriations
at the
Act, it's
top,
just like something noting,
amended from-
amendment,
Okay.
Mhm.
proposed amendment, or you could number them throughout the year, and a date.
That's a good
First amendment,
idea.
second
Mhm.
amendment.
That might
Like
not
if
be
we
such a
amend
bad-
a contract, we'll call it a first amendment to the contract.
Yeah.
That'll help us
Hopefully
keep,
not a whole
right,
more, but
well,
yeah.
that'll help us keep track of how frequent it is, and
Not that frequent is, it's as long as you're compliant. with
absolutely, yeah.
Statute, it doesn't matter how often you
Yeah.
do it.
Mhm.
I was just curious.
No, that's a good.
Help keep
And if we go back and look in our files, it'll be clear which one, without having. to
Their
read
date,
Because
yeah,
you have to
their
go to,
name's the
okay,
date.
April 9, but
Mhm.
did it, yeah.
No, that's good. That's good feedback.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Amended, what do we wanna call this for Ben?
I make a motion to adopt the final draft of the FY 2024 Appropriations Act with revisions as reviewed and approved at the April 9th, 2024 board meeting.
That's a lot of words.
That's what it says right there. I'm just writing it.
Oh.
Refer back to that.
Circle back around.
Becky
It has been
supported
moved
it.
and supported. Is there any more discussion?
Mhm.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, let me get to the fun stuff. Annual meeting budget and attendance.
Yeah, I just thought it was cool. So we budgeted $1,000 for our annual meeting and $500 for our election. And we got $1,000 in sponsorship. So this document is listing out literally what we spent money on. And then you can see the sponsors and then the original budget versus what we spent. And then after all of our sponsors, we only really spent like $200. And I thought that was really exciting. So I just wanted to brag about that because the staff worked really hard on getting sponsors for this event. So that was exciting. We'd never really done that before, like us personally. And then we had like 65 people come, which was a pretty decent show up for an open house. And I just wanted to give that update. Obviously, we got a new board member out of it, so.
Yeah, to compare, I think last year we had 75 people at our meeting.
And that was like a sit down dinner.
That people paid to go to.
So
Ben,
that's pretty good. That was pretty good.
Ben made some nice giveaways.
Mhm.
Yes.
Very
Nice.
There were people very excited about those. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, they were very excited when we called them up to let them know that they won. We came in, we were excited for them.
Great. Elections. The elections at the annual meeting recognize the receipt of the oath of office. We don't need a motion to accept this, or we just,
I think we just
Recognizing.
recognize that you got it.
all right, so yes, we have got it. She's in, we can't get rid of her now.
You know how that happens.
And election of officers, our board officers. Could we come up with how, I guess we nominate. How we come to, we're gonna nominate for, hang on, basically with that, Doug, do you have a motion that you'd like to make before
I'd like to go
Getting-
back to what we did in 2022, where we made a policy that the secretary treasurer were the same. So I would like to make a motion to update our policy on that.
I have, the minutes up here from the last time we did this, a little bit bigger. So this was what the discussion that was about the, secretary treasurer role. And so that was voted on in 2022. Has everyone read that?
23, we didn't. do
Yeah,
anything.
Right.
Were you okay with me to scroll down, or are you still reading?
So basically, the motion is to amend our policy, I guess would be the right word. Amend or update our
Update.
policy.
Well,
And,
Is that what you're saying, that the policy was updated at that board meeting? and
Well,
should be
It was never
reflected?
designed.
it was never,
Update.
yeah, that one wasn't updated, we
Didn't update.
we just talked about doing it, and that's what we did for that election. So that's i.e. why we want to
And
update the
after
policy.
she came on, she didn't know any different.
So with, I guess, can you recite the motion back to us, or do you not have it?
Did someone make a motion?
Oh, I thought-
Oh, you did.
We haven't got it supported yet.
Yeah, I don't have it in here yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the motion
He's waiting
is,
for support before he does anything.
Yeah.
Motion to update our policy to,
What we voted on in 2022, keep the secretary and treasurer the same.
Let's say
that
to-
position, instead of two positions, that is one position.
Yeah.
Secretary/treasurer position.
Maybe say to merge the secretary and treasurer into one position as voted on in the April 2022 board meeting. That's reflected in the minutes.
Is there support to that motion?
I'll support that.
It has been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have some discussion. I think it would be valuable to have secretary as a separate position. And this is why. I think it would be nice for the staff to not have to be responsible for the minutes, number one. And I know the discussion that we had last time, and it was my literal first meeting, so I didn't really have a lot of context on a whole lot of things like, at that point in time. But I know Roger Bergman was here and was like, most of the things in Ottawa County, it's one role which is true in Ottawa. As far as CDs specifically, that's not generally true. Generally, there is a separate secretary and treasurer role at most districts. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean all by itself that it's the best option for us or not. But I think having a board member be responsible for the minutes would alleviate some pressure on the staff. I also think as we grow and expand, having two people with two different roles just gives the board more ability to have capacity to help out and do various things. And it's not all on one person. So I think there is a value to having them as separate. I'm not like strongly opposed to them being one. Obviously, Doug's done a great job. I don't have any like huge concerns or red flags where I'm like, Doug, you've been dropping the ball since you're trying to do two jobs in one. But I do think there could be some benefits to having them as separate roles. So I think it's worth discussing a little bit more.
All right, anybody
Can you
else?
pop up current policy?
I do
And
not
is
have
it
the
local
current
policy
policy.
or is
That's
it
all-
business?
So that is all of the policy that I could find on all four.
And is this district policy? Like,
Yes,
This is
that is
our,
what has been
Yeah,
voted on,
in our
is in the
policy book.
manual I was given.
there isn't a singular unified standard for all districts across the state. It is on an individual basis.
I just know we never changed it the whole time I was here and didn't really see a need for it.
The boards
I
that-
mean,
the bylaws for some of the boards that I administer, it's optional for
Correct.
the bylaws that you can combine them or you can do them separately. So what is the?
I'm
goal
going
of
by
the motion?
memory, and I don't wanna put words in Jack's mouth, but I think we had this conversation and Jack, from the state said it's optional. It's,
Right.
the state does not say, one or the other. It just says that's up to the area.
Local board.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
so each
local
year
board.
when we elect our XCOM, we can choose as a board whether or not we
Yeah.
want secretary, treasurer combined, or whether we want that separate.
no, I'm asking just keep it.
Well,
So but you're proposing that we want it kept the same
The
way
way
all
we
the time
voted
per
before,
policy.
cause it's in
yes,
our policy. And I don't ever remember it being there. I mean, things have not changed since I don't think you've been here.
Mhm.
So I don't. It's never been brought up until Kelly brought it up. A couple years ago.
Right. Which was for its own separate reasons that had
Yeah,
nothing,
I don't wanna.
nothing
get
to
into
do, but, I still feel like that, like I said, that there could be some value and it's because it's always been the same, I think we may recognize other opportunities for having that as two separate roles that we're not even considering or thinking about right now because we've always done it this way. But again, I don't think it's like functionally broken the way it is. There's some advantages potentially to doing it differently. But I'm open for thoughts or are there other things that we could, as a board, could be doing? Minutes being the only thing that's like right in front of my face. But are there other things that we could be doing as a board that would help support staff, remove administrative burden from them from our meeting standpoint? That could be handled by a secretary role without putting even more on the treasurer, who carries a lot.
We pay these guys to be here. Just to let you know.
I mean.
is there any other discussion on it? We'll get back on track.
I guess
Anybody else?
I just wanted to comment, I don't have a strong preference either way. I can see separating or combining. I guess I'm not sold on if the policy allows us to make that choice each year as a board, when we let the XCOM, I'm not convinced that we need to make a motion to make a policy change that we have to stick to then, and we're obligating, future boards as people ebb and flow to that, where, if we leave it as it is.
Next year if you want.
Yeah, but why do we want to change policy? We
Right.
already have the option. Why do we want to change policy?
don't know where the option
that
came from.
restricts? Because it doesn't
I
say.
mean, we didn't
Well,
dig
the
back
option
in
came-
on the old stuff, like back in your days, what it is, that, I
Mhm.
mean, we didn't dig.
All
back
right.
in on
Well,
that.
I mean,
So-
with that said, the motion on the table reads the way it reads. Again, so I guess let's, I totally get what you're saying, but I mean, the motion here is. So does the motion maker want to change his motion?
What is the motion?
No, well, I mean, the motion is to change the policy.
Update our policy with a.
No. So with that said, I say, if there is no more discussion, we'll vote on this vote on this motion that's on the floor. If we don't like it, vote it down and move on, and then we'll keep tackling this, we'll come at it from a different direction. But the motion on the floor reads that we're gonna change the policy to combine the seat, the office, the secretary and treasurer. So with that, how do you vote, Rivka?
Oh, you gotta call me first. That's not nice. I vote no.
Tim?
Yes.
Becky?
No.
Doug?
Yes.
Yes. So it changes. Election of officers.
I also have how we did it last time, so you can see basically looks like there was a nomination and then people.
Me and Natalie had a question as far as my chairmanship and the new chairman. Where does,
I talked to Jack about it,
oh, good.
and he said that you are chairman until they vote that you're not. So you run it until
Okay.
there's a new one and then they run it.
Well, and that was our question as far as who runs the meeting while that's being done, so.
Did midstream,
Mhm.
midstream in the meeting.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
so yes, I guess we'll take nominations. Do we,
Can we take a minute to review the officer roles and just go through that before we make a
If
vote, so we're all know what
if you
we're
so need to,
agreeing to?
that was in our packet prior to
Yeah.
meeting, correct?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Um,
Are there any things that I guess just that we want to discuss or clarify? Well, and I guess
Yeah, I
the
guess-
secretary treasurer just becomes both of these lists of things then, no, right?
correct. If, I guess if there's a huge need to, I don't want to tell you you can't, but I mean,
Nope.
in the essence of time, and we've all had
I'm all good.
that at our disposal to the last
Mhm.
week or so.
Yep.
So, I mean, if there's something you are dying to bring out, I mean, we'll
Well, I
listen.
mostly just wanted to look at with the secretary treasurer combined, just like look at that briefly, but I'm a fast reader, so I'm good to go.
So, I guess I would accept nominations. I'm trying, last year, did we do chair? And then vice chair, then secretary? I mean, how did, or did we do them
Yeah, it
all at
looks like we
once?
did chair, vice chair.
Okay,
I
so we
think we
did
did
them
one at a time.
separately, correct? All right. So I guess we'll take nominations for chair. I'll open the floor for nominations for chair.
I'll nominate Matt.
I'll support.
I will nominate Becky.
I don't think we need this. Right?
I don't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we don't. No? I just didn't want to find out tomorrow that we needed one or not. Is there any more nominations? I gotta say it 3 times.
So we
Is there
don't
any more
need to support,
nominations?
you have to nominate you also, how do you do that?
I'm sorry.
So if he nominated you.
Yep.
And I said the support, you said if I don't need support, do I need to nominate you, or did that come to?
No, it's,
No, no,
it's, my
it's a
name is in the
vote.
or on the
Yeah.
or in the running.
On the ballot.
So right now, there's 2 people that have been nominated for chair.
Got it.
Is there any more nominations?
You can see there's an example on the vice chairman part, and the person just votes for what person they want to vote for.
All right, seeing as how there's no more nominations, we will vote. You either vote for. Oh.
We
how did
would
we do
vote
this?
for
We can
Matt
do
or
that voice
Becky.
vote, correct? We didn't have to do our ballot.
No.
Nope.
We
No,
we
just a voice vote, and it looks like you can vote for yourself.
Mhm.
No. Tim, how do you vote?
Matt.
Becky,
Becky,
Rivka,
Becky.
Doug,
Matt,
Breaker. I vote for Matt. Nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Becky.
went down the list. I'm gonna nominate Tim.
Is there any other nominations? There can be more than 2. Any more nominations? All right, we will vote for vice chair. Try to figure out where to start. Rivka don't like me starting with her.
It's, you're the chair, do whatever you want, Matt.
I'm trying to mix it up so we don't start at the same spot every time. Becky, how do you vote?
Becky.
Tim, how do you vote?
Tim.
Rivka,
Becky.
Doug,
Tim,
I'm gonna vote Becky. Secretary treasurer, any nominations?
I nominate Doug.
Any nominations? Seeing how there is not a second name on there, we can just use that unanimous consent, right?
Looks like just vote yes or no.
Yeah. Roll call, I think.
Tim, how do you vote? Becky,
Yes.
Rivka,
Yes.
Doug,
yes.
don't have to tie that one off. Thank you for your commitment. From what we've understood in the past, the chairman basically places the committees. But what we've done with that is kind of asked who wants to be on them to kind of come to a consensus of who is, we've normally, of course, we have the two board members. And right now, we basically have a finance committee and we have a human resource committee. And then there is we're gonna come back to an advisory committee, but the advisory committee needs to be voted on if we want to if we want to have an advisory committee. We need to establish that committee. So right now, we're just gonna do HR and finance committee. So, in that, we'll do for some, yeah, I guess we'll start with human resource committee. With that said, we are gonna try to go through some policies this year, which that'll be a larger, hopefully, we had a lot of hiring this past year. Hopefully, we're gonna be in a lull for hiring this coming year, but still the time resource, of that, for working on some policies. As soon as our director gets all of her feet underneath her and heading in the direction, we're gonna take on a couple policies, hopefully every month, every quarter. And try to clean up our policy book. We've got a couple that are in question that have rose to the top of the list. So with that said, there'll be a little, is there anybody who'd like to be on the human resource committee?
I'm happy to continue serving on that committee.
Rivka and Doug were the past human resource committee. Is there? Again, I don't wanna assume we're just gonna keep doing it the same way we did, but. Kim, Becky, Doug, who wants to be the second board member on that said committee?
We discuss the finance committee and then come back to assignments, just for my benefit, who was on it in the past and who has what skill sets that might run well.
Yep. Yeah, I guess, normally in the past, our finance committee has been the treasurer and the chairman. For just, of course, the treasurer would be in the finance, that's kind of a no-brainer, but, as far as, in the past, it's been president chairperson has taken on that committee.
That's not defined by anything.
That is not, no, you're exactly right, it is not defined. So.
There is a lot that goes on between myself and Natalie and Matt. Do you see where it should be different? From
Or would like it to be
chair,
different.
treasurer?
I feel like that's at the discretion of the board.
Spot.
I tried not to.
I mean, I think, Becky would be an asset on the finance committee just because of her past, experience as ED and having a bigger picture of what's going on the county level. And I think Becky and Doug could make a really good team on that committee. But that's just,
I just think so too, but from past experience, I think the chairman needs to be on there. I really do.
There's a lot of things, with that being said, I mean, there's a lot of things that we discuss at finance meetings that
Fall back
need to get
into what he's doing.
thrown past the chairman, I feel. But, again, with Becky's skill set, I can totally see that,
Could we just have more than two people?
no.
No,
three people makes a quorum.
Open meetings
so.
act.
Darn open meeting.
Yeah.
Got us again.
I'm certainly not dying to be on it. I just want to see what all the options were and maybe even
Yep.
discuss advisory before we make our final determination if another committee.
Is there a conflict of interest being her sitting on the county board?
Corporation Council has advised that there is not, which,
Right.
is strict to this board. So if they allow me on this board, there shouldn't be any
Right.
further
there's no-
conflict of interest. Now, let's pass
Committee.
Corporation Council, because
Yeah.
goodness knows I didn't ask for Corporation Council.
Like I say, again, it has merit. I mean, I totally see it and get it and, maybe, so I guess
Can we
with that
talk
said,
about the advisory committee and what the goal is for that? Can we explain that in a little more depth?
oh, great, yeah, we can do anything we want. Well, one, I guess how do we do that? We're getting out of sync with our agenda.
I think
Can
people
Natalie
just don't want to
advise?
overcommit.
Can
the
you-
committee
Yeah,
But none of
committees
these are
without
being
knowing.
voted on, so it's.
Well, the advisory committee needs to be.
Right.
It reflects meep and stuff,
Mhm.
so.
All right, well, let's
The
go to
previous, I guess what I'm
advisory
saying is the
committee.
previous two are not being voted on, so in terms of the minutes, it'll be easy enough for me to just,
Correct.
yeah.
And we have talked earlier about the chairman just making these, having said, maybe the chairman should just go talk to individual board members and then make that decision, but I've always liked the way we've done it in the past with the whole board
Right.
having input. So I mean, that's why we took a couple minutes out of the meeting to do it. So yes, I guess with that being said, let's talk about the advisory committee. Chicken or egg, do we want to, I guess let's talk about what's gonna be expected of advisory committee, which that would probably be the best place to start.
Yeah, so right now, Tim is sitting on the meat cost share committee. And then you also go to the produce safety goal setting meeting and you go to the meat goal setting meeting. And so I was told that the overall goal was to eventually have that be some type of like committee that gets passed, every year. I don't know if it's appropriate to call it that, but that is the name I came up with when I was discussing it with Matt. So those would be the like main functions of that person. You would go to those two goal setting meetings and you would sit on the cost share committee for me.
So Tim is currently doing all of
Tim
those, and
is
if we made a
current-
committee, then there'd just be one person and they.
So maybe it's
have
not.
Tim.
So is that advisory committee or like program committee? Like, is it specific to those programs or is it, like, what is it? Is the
Today-
goal, like,
today it-
informing?
Today, we
Today it
just-
is specific to them
Yeah,
programs.
we need a board member to do those three things, and I think she wanted to give them a title. Or
If we could
something,
find
you
two
know?
people to sit on said committee and explore into over the coming year
Mhm.
as to what that advisory committee may morph into, if that's the right word, where maybe direction, maybe there's other items that committee could take on. And then again, we come back next year, maybe we call it some other kind of committee, if the direction of it changes. But yeah, like I say, right
Okay.
now, we need a board member to sit on said meat and
Produce safety.
produce safety, that type of thing, so, yeah, one person, I would rather have two, again, to get the two sets eyes, but I mean, it doesn't have to
We can
be.
do one.
Tim has done all the heavy lifting for the last year. But, so. Does that answer your question? That's our idea of advisory committee at this point.
Does that answer your question, Becky?
What else would you envision this committee undertaking besides those three required assignments?
That's it as of right now.
I think that warrants having a committee, or
I-
it just warrants taking the
I
load off
just,
of Tim and appointing someone else to serve on one of those boards. Might be easier than establishing another committee that then needs to
Correct.
be managed and monitored.
yes, I have no opinion on it being a committee. I just need somebody to do those three tasks. And if you want it to be an officer, I just need it to rotate every year and be someone on the board. So I don't know if that's appropriate is what I'm saying. I think you're probably right.
We can call it whatever we like. So.
Okay, well, I know enough about that now that you can do whatever you like. If you wish to vote on that now, or if you wish to continue doing the assignments for the committees, I just wanted to know that before.
Well, I'm gonna look for a motion to create said committee. If there is no motion, if there is no further
So is it a
conversation,
new committee or is it just putting a name on what we're
it's
gonna?
putting a name on
Well,
theoretically what you've
And
been.
I agree with Becky. I don't necessarily see a reason that I'd have to look back at our bylaws about committees and how they run, but there's like very specific things that committees can and cannot do. And I feel like it overly complicates it to have a committee versus just assigning a person to those meetings, and Tim needs support on those meetings, totally understandable. But I agree with Becky. I'm not sure that we need a new committee for it, unless there's something I'm not seeing.
Input from the peanut gallery.
Yes,
Why don't you
please.
just call it, MDART advisory, officer, or something like that, because it's only for MDART roles and things
Well,
specifically. Unless you want to-
Advisory officer,
Or advisory
or just
officer.
make it an officer position, because that's just one person, and then you don't have to worry about the group.
I mean, that's touchy right now. That's just touchy.
Oh, calling it MDART specifically.
So you're saying just leave it the way it is and
Just like
And just
someone else,
assign
like
somebody.
that on one
Yeah.
of the boards, and Tim could sit on the other two. It doesn't need to be a
Yeah.
committee. We just need a
Mm.
board member to step up and do it. I don't know if we need
Correct.
another layer of what not, I guess
What-
is my
I guess-
thought, unless there is. a
What
good
did we call it
justification for
last
that,
year?
which I don't
No,
know.
I
We
agree.
didn't have a name for it last year, correct? Tim just
No,
agreed to
It's
sit
I
on it.
just
sitting in on me.
think that it should rotate
Right.
to get a full perspective of the elected.
Yes. Well, I mean,
Just
and
having like a director or
That's all.
volunteer for that role. So, yeah.
And us as a board collaboratively and cooperatively deciding, oh, it should be someone else's
Correct.
point now, and Tim is okay, I've done my turn, someone else step up. And
Mhm.
I will-
theoretically, Tim was, this is kind of a farmer,
Right, really
you know,
makes sense.
so
to
we
on
put the
those.
farmer on the board, you know, that was
Right.
kind of our general.
Mhm.
Kind of always been that way. I mean,
So-
Dave Pyle did it before too, I think.
So I guess I make a motion to continue to appoint a director to attend without creating a committee.
I'll
Well,
support that.
let's just not make a motion. I mean, we don't need to. And then we'll just appoint somebody to that position.
And were you
So-
okay with that approach?
Tim, are you gonna say you okay with serving? I was hoping so.
Do you need more support in attending those meetings? or- Okay. Cool.
All right, so Tim is gonna stand on that, in on that advisory role. Thank you, Tim. So, back to
Pulling that towards me for some reason.
I guess let's, I guess my 2 cents, you know, as far as, you know, again, I guess back to the chairman, you know, advisor, I guess I would say the finance committee being the treasurer and the chairperson. I would lean towards doing that unless there's a huge backlash from the board. Does anybody have a problem with that?
I
So,
don't have a problem with it. Like I said, I think
Yep.
Becky brings some really good skill sets. but
Yes.
That's just, up to whatever you feel. Like, I also have not served on the finance committee. Like, I understand you guys have other information.
I'd like to sit down with Becky and talk about the finances with her, so she's up to date since she's, yeah.
not to go back and rehash what we
I
did.
mean, I wouldn't
but
hate their
kind of-
help on HR either, but.
I kind of figured that, you know, a vice chair might have to step in a time or two this coming year to on said finance committee. Was kind of my general thinking of that, but you know, that's. So I guess with that, I'm gonna put Matt and Doug on the finance committee and we have
Wanna do
Rivka
HR?
on the human.
This is just consensus. We're good. It's just consensus.
If,
mean,
if
he
you're
opposed
okay, if
point-
you're okay
oh,
with
yeah.
serving on said committee, then I'm going to appoint you to be the HR committee, Rivka and you. Rivka has our,
I don't think Doug should be on two committees unless Doug really wants to be on two committees.
I was on
I
two
mean,
committees.
HR probably
yeah.
isn't my
I
I
strong
was
suit. I'd
actually
be better
gonna
off sitting on a
nominate nobody else.
meat
was.
board than HR, but I'll do it.
well, I
because
mean,
I don't
and with
feel
that
really
said,
sure.
I mean, I don't anticipate. I think a lot of the policy stuff can literally be done email and talking. I mean, I don't think it's gonna require very many meetings per se, get together, you know, and
Hopefully we'll-
talk and hash.
Heavy interviewing and stuff.
That was
this
bad.
year.
I mean, we were interviewing a lot of people
Yeah.
and it was a lot, and it was a lot of work.
Mhm. Well, no,
These
that's not a lot
guys-
of work. Would you like me to take your spot
What,
No, isn't that it?
on the HR committee?
you can take it.
I'm not crying for it. I just don't want you to have to serve on two committees and I want to do something because currently I'm doing nothing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, true.
Becky and Rivka.
Dream team.
All right, thank you for your commitment of time. Meet cost sharing committee goal setting, PST goal setting. What is PS?
Those are under the advisory committee.
Yeah. it's
I
on the next
assumed.
page, I'm sorry.
PSD is probably safety.
Food safety, thank you. I know I've seen it before. Summer conference, we talked earlier, we didn't have a whole bunch of information, we have no,
I
we don't
know
have a whole bunch of
nothing.
information, we thought we'd be enlightened.
Would I
don't
like to
have
give you an
anything to
update?
say.
I mean, the update that I can give you is that all of the conference content is heavily director focused this year. The part of the delay is we're trying to see if there are any ways that we can reduce registration costs. So we can't set up registrations until we decide how much it costs, and we're trying to get sponsorships in place and partnerships in place to bring those numbers down so that it's more accessible for more directors to attend and it's not burdensome on districts for attendance. But I think it is not only because the content is director focused, but it's just a highly valuable experience to be able to collaborate with other districts. And I would say particularly right now.
Well, we have another month prior to, I
Yes.
mean, we can
Yeah, we don't
tidy
have to
this up
make a
next month.
decision. We'll have a lot more information. I'm just right now, our partnerships on a statewide and federal level are really critical. Like, not only with MDART and the MEP stuff, which is the most visible stuff, but there's some potential really big shifts coming.
Perfect.
And looking at the owl, and certain other things. So it really is incumbent upon us as directors to build those relationships wherever possible. It's really gonna be important, not just for Ottawa, but for conservation districts statewide. Like we're really at an inflection point that we have to shore up the strength of our districts and the collaboration between our districts, or conservation district as they exist today will not likely continue to exist in the same way. If we don't start
Okay.
making some changes.
Well,
So,
let's
that's gonna be my,
let's bring the conference up next
feel
month.
on that.
Task management program. Who gets that?
That was something.
That's also Rivka.
one?
So Barry did a whole training. I've been trying to get from Jamie the recording of the training to send to you. I've
Are
emailed
we
him at
training?
least 5 different times.
That Monday.
Yes,
I've heard
because
exactly.
that would be really helpful. One of the things that MACD is starting to use, as well as several other districts, being the most integrated with it, is a task management system called Monday. And the advantage to using it over our current system is all based on like using spreadsheets and Google Docs, which is great, but has its limitations. Everything exists in its own separate file. What Monday allows you to do is create the full list of tasks for any given project. And then assign to people. So you can, like Natalie can create a project and can say, here's all of the tasks for this project. Sarah, this one's your job. Ben, this one's your job. Morgan, this one's your job. You can mark in there if it's dependent on a previous task. You can mark in there if you're working on it, if you're stuck. So she can immediately go in and see, here's the tasks that people cannot complete because they need additional information, and prioritize those immediately. It also has some pretty cool reporting stuff, which is what which is what Barry's doing, that I wanted to show you. But basically that will allow her to print off a report that shows progress completed on any given project for anything and share it with the board. So we can look in a single visual graphic pie chart and say, this project is 5% completed, this project is 15% completed, this project is 90% completed, and see a really visual representation of what's going on without putting any extra work on Natalie or any of the rest of the staff to create separate reports, because it's all getting created in the process of the task management itself. You can assign deadlines. You
We
can
have that.
utilize,
I need a
yeah.
pie chart. It's the close the door
Yes.
fund. I get what you're saying.
It would
Yep.
save, like, there would be upfront, it would take more time to get it set up and to get it, to identify what are all the things. But like with MACD, I have like a separate board for each of our grants, for example, and I'm able to track all the grant deliverables, and I just associate it with the grant deliverables. So I'm like, here's the primary tasks are that, you build subtasks off of that. You can use it for time tracking, you can use it for donor management. You can use it for your database for sponsors, for example. So for annual meeting, right now, the current process is go look up the annual meeting sponsor spreadsheet that was created by Sarah, great job. And then contact those people and then fill out that information. And but there's no way to, other than just emailing back and forth, to say, who are you contacting? Who are you contacting? Whereas you could create that as a database one time, put the contact information, how much they donated previously, all of that information in one place, assign each of those contacts to staff members through your annual committee. And you can copy and paste that every year and do the same thing without having to recreate it. And you can one click, do a visual graphic report of here's all the sponsors, here's how much they donated.
And I'm sorry to cut you off. I mean, in the essence of time, why
Yep.
don't you get that to Natalie?
Yeah.
So she can take a look at it to
Yep.
see if it's something that's gonna fly in
Yep.
her world. And if it does, we'll hear about it again. If it don't, cool.
May I say a couple of quick things with
Yeah.
regard to
Yes.
that? I've not used Monday, quite frankly, collaborative software, as you all know, scares the daylights out of me. I wish I was better friends with it. And I wish that I used it in some of my projects currently, because there's a lot of benefits to it.
Mhm.
But have any of you used Asana or Monday or anything like that?
It's pretty similar to
I
Asana.
made a Monday
You-
account.
We actually used Asana here a couple of years ago.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, and no bueno?
To be honest, a lot of the employees kind of lost interest doing that.
It really,
after a while.
I think you have to be really intentional, and then with
Mhm.
employee turnover, I think it might be problematic, but I
It
know that
can-
Washtenaw uses
Yeah.
Asana, they are very
Just
strict
keep-
about it, and it does work well with their team. I think if you're really intentional about making
Yes.
it work, it could be really helpful, but I think it might be more of someone's really
And-
cracking the whip on people. making
Yeah,
it
and yeah, and that's exactly, it. And it was
Yeah.
tough for everybody, especially when you have like 14 people and you got summer cruise and you got all this stuff going. It was tough for everybody to stay on the same page.
Yeah, I
With it.
could see that, that would be a big learning curve. I think there's some benefit, but it'd be a heavy lift to, I think, to get that off the ground, but.
Yeah, I mean, it really has to be something that Natalie feels like is valuable for her.
Yes.
Because
Right,
of
and
the,
that's
but
how
at Washtenaw
was,
and
they're
at
like,
Berry,
This is what we're
if the
doing.
district
we have to-
manager,
Yeah.
I mean, like, some of the ways Jamie is using it is incredible, like, just.
Our meeting is going a little long, so I'm gonna have you guys,
But,
like I say, get it in
Sure.
front of our district
Mhm.
director, and like I say, I think that's the next step before we. Again, not to cut you off, but we're
No,
going
you're
long,
good.
so, and there's a bunch to go yet.
Mhm.
So, update, tree and plant sale.
Yeah, so our tree sale is next week.
The 19th.
Yep, and it got extended, so it will be closing the 15th now because we still have 6,000-ish trees left to sell. And we've sold about 9,000-ish.
So did we just, with 6,000, are we theoretically, I know we always stretch a little bit every year and get a little more, so we're behind in what? We stretched too far, or we didn't sell enough, we ain't at point of sale, I mean, why is that? If you can call it one thing.
I would have to look at where we were at last year at this point. I could not tell you. The only thing I could give you is how much we sold overall last year. I know that Sarah's been doing a lot of outreach. We even put out a radio ad this year, which we had not done in the past.
Yeah, I did notice that week that the radio ad was out, we did get quite a bit over, so I think it actually worked out pretty well. I think one thing could have been that, so in the past, White Pines has always been a quick sell for us. This year, the White Pines that we pre-purchased were larger transplant White Pines, and so they cost a lot more than in the past. And so our costs for the White Pines then reflected that higher cost, and so I think that potentially deterred people from purchasing White Pines. Which we did, I think we had spoke about it maybe, but we did do a we did change the cost slightly to lower it a little bit to make sure people were buying. So we did that for White Pine and Red Cedar. We did like a little price adjustment, just so we're still making a profit, obviously, still making a good profit, but it's we lowered them a little bit just because we noticed there were two trees that we still had quite a bit left and people weren't really buying them. And we have noticed a ton more people buying White Pine since then, so I think it was maybe just a cost thing, and this was our first year of figuring out those costs, so.
In
Yeah.
general,
You got the bigger ones, or you couldn't get the little ones, or?
I'm not sure.
that was just what
yeah.
they.
Lexi
yeah,
had purchased, Lexi made the order prior to her leaving, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
what the reason was for getting the different White Pines versus the smaller ones, but yeah.
I might be able to get you some more, so you got a lot of white pines left?
Yes, but we actually have sold quite a bit in the last like 2 weeks, so we're definitely sitting better now. I think we have, I think last time I checked, there was maybe around 400 something with White Pine
I
left.
was gonna say 500.
Do they have access to the remaining trees? Like, could we share that with them so they kind of know
I can definitely send that to you all.
Yeah.
what to sell?
I think someone purchased 100 White Pines today, so it went down to like 400 something. So it is going,
Great.
and we will sell trees on the day of the pickup as well. And then we're also planning on giving a few trees away during our Earth Day, table, but obviously we want to try and sell as many as possible.
Right.
Do you have enough volunteers for rep?
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of volunteers this year. It was really good.
You don't need skill center, you don't need FFA thing.
You don't need Tim.
I mean, you are more than welcome to come. Be happy to have you.
I'll get a
See what
free
I can-
t-shirt.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Tim likes it.
And lunch.
Need a bag.
I've been the last couple of years, yeah.
Yeah. It's a good time.
Okay.
I missed last year.
Our plant sale is closed for the pre-orders. I think I counted 56 garden kits sold, which those are like, how many are in each of them? Quite a few.
Yeah. I
Quite a
think
few
50
plants, like
yeah.
it's a lot of
Yeah.
plants, so that's a
38
significant
plus.
amount.
Oh, 38.
We also sold 120 bundles of 100 beach grass, so that's great as well. And our day of
What's
sale will
outside
be
the door?
June 1st.
That is.
That's a leftover.
No.
Is that a beach grit?
Someone's picking up on the 22nd, because they are out of town until April 22nd.
But is that like a beach grass? I
Yeah.
mean, is that a plug or is that a?
It's 100 stems of beach
Yes.
grass.
Okay,
So that's what the bundle looks like.
Okay,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
assume that's what it was.
Yeah.
Um,
You had a number, we started a Pheasants Forever
Yes.
Oh,
seed
yeah.
thing. And she had a neat
Um,
number earlier, Sarah did.
10 acres, yeah. So we started a partnership with Pheasants Forever, to sell Pheasants Forever seed mixes through us. And Pheasants Forever gives us like 10% discount on the commission, on the
And you
price.
can get that anytime, not just at tree sale
Yeah,
time.
so
You
it'll be
can,
available
you can call
throughout the year.
24/7.
So now basically people can purchase their Pheasants Forever seed mixes through us instead of through Pheasants Forever directly. Pheasants Forever sells it to us for 10% less, so we get to keep 10% of it, and then people get their seed mixes for the same cost they would spend at Pheasants Forever. And so far, we haven't even done any outreach to it, but because we've had tree and plant sale and people have been in our Shopify, we've sold 10 acres worth of seeds so far.
10 acres worth
Very
of
cool.
Native seed
habitat.
mixes,
Yeah,
yep.
basically, yeah.
Habitat, there's been grasses, there's been a lot of pollinator stuff.
So we're gonna kind of keep track of that number, because like, that's
That's cool.
fairly impressive. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, we've got a log to keep track of like how much we've sold and all that.
Neat.
Mhm.
Thank you much. Oh, grant policy updates.
Yeah, it just has kind of come up over the last couple months since I started. We don't really have a policy in place about going after grants, or deciding what the staff should go after. I think historically, it's been explained to me that if it didn't build a new program, the staff would just continue to go after grants to fund their current programs. And I would like some structure, to be honest. We've run into some issues around this, and I just think we could be more transparent while also honoring the short turnaround of grant writing. And I would like to see that. So that's a request from all of us, honestly.
I think, and when we talk, as far as HR and helping policy, I think and me and Natalie have been talking about this since she's gotten on. I think we need to make like a hot list or a top 10, of places to start, which policies you would like to tackle first, because I'm
Mhm.
assuming, this one is more important than, said other policies. So I mean, if you make a hot list or a top 5 or a top 3 or, and share that with said committee,
Mhm.
then that way you all can kind of get pulling in the same direction.
I think
and
the
they would-
HR committee knocking out
Yeah.
a draft in collaboration with you and then having it to present
Yeah.
to the board is a great idea.
Yeah, I think the grant policy is the big one. The other policies that we've talked about are personnel policy, things that you guys have already voted on that have never been updated.
Okay.
And so that is what I'm trying to update so that what if somebody new started that doesn't know that, it's there. And so I don't know, and you guys have already approved some of those things. It's like healthcare stuff, like we already have it. It's already happening, but it's not been written down. So, if you had the capacity to help with that too, I would love it.
I think it falls under the description
Yeah.
of what the HR
Yeah.
committee handles from what I remember. So I think it's a great suggestion.
And it's kind of a time thing. If you got time, let's tackle a couple of them. And again, I think if you make a hot list.
Yep.
Or or a to-do list, even whatever you wanna call it, then we all kind of like, yep, we need to do that one before this one, or vice versa. So I think it would give them direction. And then you
Shows
guys,
what grants to go over and
Mhm.
kind of like, since the new team took over, it was
Mhm.
to focus more on having some deliverables. So we can make some money instead of break even
Mhm.
or lose.
so, like I said, I'll let you guys get together and work your magic and, I know, yeah, I mean, there was a couple that. What was our one when we were getting all, we all had to put in give you our phones for what we got FOIA'd.
Yeah,
You
we
know.
have a policy in place for that. It just
So-
was not in the manual.
So there's a couple times we had the deer in the headlight look going, ooh, if our policy was a little more, we'd have been would have slept a little easier, but
And I
no,
have a list of recommended ones from MDARD that I plan on cross comparing to make sure we have everything.
perfect. That gives you guys some direction of which way to
Yep.
head. Grant contacts and overview and this and that.
Yeah, so we're still working on the water quality monitoring, as you are all aware of. I don't have any updates currently, other than we have a meeting with the finance director tomorrow. And that's literally the only new thing that we've heard. Other than that, we have the same SISMA grants pending. We're still waiting to hear back on a GLRI grant for HWA treatment and a landscape scale restoration grant that would be a massive partnership for Ottawa. It would allow all the conservation districts from Allegan up to Grand Traverse to work together to produce HWA treatment workshops that aren't just chemical focused, as well as put out some browse exposures in collaboration with all of the FAP foresters in that region. So everybody's signed on to it. Everybody's a part of it. That would be a huge one. We're still waiting. I keep saying I hope to hear this month, but I hope to hear this month about that grant. We did get a ranking. I don't know if I told you that. We were ranked the first in Michigan for that funding stream and 7th in the nation.
Great.
It's looking fairly
It's
good.
looking good. The watershed program, we are still waiting to hear back on the glacial lakes, but Ben was saying that he spoke with someone and it is also looking positive.
Very positive.
And then the watershed council grant, however, as you know, we got today that startup volunteer stream monitoring program grant. So that one we have, it just did not get moved. I apologize.
Well, nothing's been contracted yet. We were just notified, so it's okay. I think that it's still pending. We were notified they're getting it, but
We had our execution call for the West Michigan SISMA funding, that first one that you see. We had the execution call for that today. Is that today? Yesterday. They're all blurring together. We've sorted out the deliverables with the amount of money they awarded. And then as I already spoke at length on, we have now officially executed that sub-award as well. So those will be off of this list come next month.
Perfect. And you talked about your executing one.
Yep,
Well, I come to the bottom of my page. Does that mean we're done?
you've got one more with your board updates.
you took it out and you got an ordinance then.
Well, you don't want me to lose my place.
True.
All right, yes, board updates. Kind of Becky, what we do with this, everybody gets 2 minutes to talk about whatever they want, as long as it's positive.
And how do you do with that, Matt?
I do great.
You don't say anything.
Yeah. Mama said, if you don't got nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all. And that goes here too. Tim, what do you got?
Nothing this time.
I'm gonna let Becky go last this time around, cause she's the newbie. Rivka, 2 minutes.
Well, congratulations to Becky on being the new Region 7 Vice Chair for State Council. Very excited to hand that role off to her. I just wanted to, as I kind of alluded to earlier, just bring up a couple things that the staff are doing that's amazing that, you know, maybe they're not getting credit for. Morgan is spearheading the Pollinate Conference, which is a series of workshops for women and non-binary people in ag. This is the second year of that workshop series. It was being coordinated by Eaton, but MACD has now taken that on as the fiduciary of that project. So she's doing a fantastic job. And, you know, I really appreciate the extra effort in that area. And also good job on the MEEP survey, guys. We've gotten a 611 responses on that, and that has been a really valuable tool in meetings with legislators and with Farm Bureau, and being able to say, it's not just my opinion that this is what farmers think. 611 of them told me what they think, and they all think the same thing for the most, well, 88.9% of them think the same thing. So good work, guys. Really appreciate you stepping up. I, on a personal note, am very excited always to say that I'm from Ottawa Conservation District and how amazing you are, and use what we're doing here as a model that can be distributed statewide. So keep giving me bragging rights. It makes my job easy. That's all I wanted to say.
No, keep.
Nope, her 2 minutes is up.
And now you're both required to say nice things last.
Doug,
Just worked a lot with Natalie on the treasury things, with Matt too, and finally got the savings account. That's a big one. We keep
No,
talking
it's a
about it. You
big
guys have no
so,
idea.
so simple, but
It wasn't a walk down to the bank and say, hey, can we have a savings account?
no, like I say, I mean, and I try to bring up good things all through the meeting. I was bragging about your 10 acres and yeah, no, like I say, you know, a great team. Like I say, it is a, you know, it's always fun to come in here and hear what you guys are up to. So, no, that's, or hear what you're up to out there. So, no, that's a good thing. So, but yeah, with that, I would, oh, Becky, sorry. Wow, wow, I'd have really been in the doghouse. Becky, save the best till last.
Way to recover.
Did I recover?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
If you don't have nothing, you're not, you know, obligated.
Calm down, give me a minute.
Jeez.
Gather my thoughts.
A minute?
2 minutes.
My goodness. 10 minutes ago, I told you this was gonna happen. Give it to us.
Thanks. So I'm just glad to be back on the board, and it's all new and different now since I was here as a member of the team, but we've never been very far away. So it's good to be back. It feels good to just show up and be able to walk right in and have a pretty good understanding of everything. I think if a new board member from the community were to come on, I think it'd be very, very overwhelming because there's so much going on in the district. But yeah, I'm glad to be here and to serve on state council. You know, I like to push things forward, so I enjoy being in that role, that move the needle on some things, setting up some meetings with legislators and supporting districts in that way. And thanks for letting me be your vice chair. And I'm looking forward to doing policy things. I do enjoy that, so thank you.
Welcome. With that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Any
Required.
discussion? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Take home.
Yeah, it's our audit financial report, and because I couldn't get it to you till today.